Hello everybody. I hope you are having a fantastic morning so far, and welcome to this digital summit. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you today. I'm going to try and run through everything, and if I get a chance at the end, I'll answer some of your questions. My name is Chris Kiefert, and this is Overcoming the Odds. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I've been playing poker online professionally for 12 or so years. I've also run and co-owned a poker staking business where I've coached and managed a team of poker players remotely. So I've done all of this from home, so I understand many of the challenges and difficulties that you're all facing right now. I use the skills that I've learned and the experience in my current profession as an executive performance coach, where I work with high potential professionals, mainly in the iGaming industry, where I work with them to improve their performance, further their career, and achieve their goals. So with that in mind, what does it take? What does it take not just to survive, but to thrive in an industry where year after year, poker players are dropping out like flies, where it becomes ever more difficult to earn a living? Now, many will have told you that they stopped playing because they just didn't like it anymore, or they fancied a change. But the cold, hard truth is this. Many poker players had to stop playing because they either went broke, they couldn't win anymore, or they couldn't manage themselves. Now, these are things that are very difficult to admit to yourself, let alone to anybody else. And it's not just a case of if this is going to happen, but really when. And this could happen many times over. And it's really how you deal with this situation that determines whether you're going to make it or not just in poker, but I think in life, because you're going to go through periods where you don't win in your health, where you don't win in your finances, where you don't win in some of these other areas. Now, you can't survive in poker or these areas long term through luck. You can't survive on just skill. And I believe it's my job today to give you what I think were the key ingredients for me overcoming the odds so that you can too. So let's begin where I began. I was on my way to be a hero by society standards at least. Now, I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and not just any fighter pilot. I wanted to fly fast jets off aircraft carriers in the Royal Navy, exactly like Maverick in Top Gun, the ultimate thrill, the ultimate challenge. So at 13, I joined the Air Cadets, where I learned to fly, I learned to shoot, and some of the necessary skills for this career path. And I was so passionate about it, I knew exactly what I wanted. My uniform was always the best. My shoes were always the best because I knew in order to be in that cockpit, taking off that aircraft carrier, I had to be the best. And at 17, I passed the aptitude tests with flying colors, and I decided that before going in, I wanted to go to university. So, what degree shall I choose? Well, aerospace engineering. Learn how to build planes. I mean, that makes sense. That will further my career. So that's what I did. And I was on my way to become a hero. Now, there was just one teeny tiny problem in all of this, which was I was incredibly naive. Incredibly naive. This plan did not match who I was as a person. For one, I absolutely hated academics. I mean, I still wake up and have nightmares about being in school. I saw school as something that you have to do, not something that you really get to do. And I cheated my way through school. I copied all my homework. I dozed off in every class, and to pass the exams at the end of the year, I would buy these cheat books, which would condense the year's worth of material into 20 or 30 pages. Now, aerospace engineering, let me tell you, this is no light reading. This is 40 hours a week of hardcore mathematics and extra time, because I didn't even have enough class time to cover all the course material. So my friends, they were doing 12-hour class time, 20-hour class time. I mean, I went to university to have fun, to be free, get some independence, to party, to meet girls. This was just a recipe for disaster. But I did what I knew how to do, which was to try and cheat my way through. Now, the second point was I really didn't like school mainly because of conformity and rules. I just always found it really bizarre that you would sit in rows, silent, in uniform, like sheep, to attention, with the bells going off and having to obey. Well, what did I think I was going to do in the military for 15 years? I mean, this was just so stupid. I'd be obeying and conforming. And the third one, which was even more ridiculous, was it finally dawned on me that I might have to be in a position one day to end people's lives. And this was just something that I could not live with. So, dream was gone, purpose was gone, and was no point cheating my way through the degree anymore. That's gone too. So, what now? Well, luckily, I did have one idea, and this idea would change my life, but I just hadn't connected the dots yet. Now, when I was younger, I used to watch poker on TV with my brother and my dad late at night. And we used to see all the usual characters, Phil Hellmuth, Devilfish, and they'd be hooked up to the heart monitor machines. And every time they were all in, you could see their pulses racing. It was very dramatic and really fun to watch. But we never really played against each other or for money. I just played on the computer for free after school. Now, my brother, he had other ideas. On his 18th birthday, as soon as the clock hit midnight, he deposited. And I thought it was a little strange, but I didn't think anything of it because I was going to be a fighter pilot. Now, word got to me 4 or 5 months later that he had bought a car with poker money. I mean, this was just totally unheard of. This was crazy. I mean, it was something you saw on TV. It wasn't real. So that's when the alarm bells started ringing off in my head. Now, at university, like all students, I didn't have that much money. My parents were going through divorce. I didn't want to bother them. I had so little money in the first year that when I forgot to bring my duvet to school, I actually slept with a towel, and all my friends used to take the Vic out of me. So that wasn't very good for impressing the girls, let me tell you that. Now, the prospect of playing a card game for some extra cash, something I enjoyed, well, that was really exciting. So I had a bar job at the time, and not long after the bar job, I was making more in poker than I was in the bar job, so I quit that. And it wasn't until the third year, the very end, where I'd been ignoring everything. And after 3 years of partying, cheating my way through my degree, and completely failing to impress the opposite sex, that I had to get real with myself. I had to ask myself some difficult questions because all my friends were leaving and I wasn't going to stay there partying alone. So the one question I managed to ask myself that changed everything was the following. What if poker could be my job? And as soon as I asked it, I knew I had found it. I just knew this was what I wanted to do. I was so excited and I couldn't wait to get started. And I literally felt like a kid at Christmas. It was like I was waiting for Santa to come, and that excitement completely overtook me. So I want to ask you this. What are your desires? What is your passion? If you had to spend 16 hours a day, every single day, on something, and not get paid for it, what would it be? And I implore you to really think about this and know what this is. This is incredibly important. Now, some of you are saying you don't have time. Everybody has the same 24 hours. Some of you come home at 5 or 6. What are you doing for that 6 or 7 other hours? Even if you would spend or commit to 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day just to spend time in a place that you feel the most joy or passion, even if you don't get paid for it, you're not going to regret it. And some of you might be saying, well, I don't know what that is. Well, that's okay. I've been in that position. Just spend some time exploring what that might be. What are your talents? What do other people say you're good at? When have been the most joyous times in your life? And you're going to know when you find it because you're going to feel like a kid. So if you haven't found it, please just keep searching. So I was 21. I was going to be a fighter pilot and I was going to have an aerospace engineering degree. And I went from that to drop out, in debt, moving at home with my mommy, little cash, no belongings, and wanting to be a professional gambler. And it was really seen as gambling in those days. The lottery was less of a gamble than playing poker. So, what do you think everybody said when they knew this was what I was going to be and this is what had happened now? I mean, I was just a loser in everybody's eyes. But this was not the reaction I was expecting because I was naive. I had complete belief in myself. I knew that with every fiber of my body that I could do this. And I just thought, well, this will what will everyone else will think as well. But these were not the reactions I was seeing. I mean, my friends at university, they just laughed at me. They thought this was hilarious. They thought I was just going to lose all my money. But at least they laughed. And the other looks that I got were quite serious. I mean, people were genuinely concerned my safety. They thought that I had some sort of gambling problem or drug addiction problem. I mean, it was really crazy to see their faces. So I had a few people in my corner, but it honestly wouldn't have mattered if I had no one in my corner, because I just knew I could do this. And this brings me on to my next point. You have to try and get some belief, because you can have some desire and passion, but if you don't really believe that you can do it or believe in yourself, you might never start, and that would be a real shame. So what fears are you giving power over you? And try and take a minute to think about this. Is it the fear of failure, the fear of embarrassment, the fear of not being good enough? Well, nobody starts at the top of the mountain. You have to work your way up. Don't see the mountain. Just take some small steps and begin your journey. Now, one of the techniques is to not see things worse than they are, but to see them as they are. So ask yourself sometimes, well, what would be the worst case? Now, for me, the worst case in this scenario was that I would have to get a job that I didn't like, and everybody would say, I told you so. Well, they were already talking anyway. I would have to have got a job that I didn't like anyway. But what was the upside? Well, the upside was I could do something I really love, that I'm really excited to do, and I'd be free, and I'd be working for myself. I mean, that was what I wanted. So the upside massively outweighed the downside, and the downside really wasn't that bad, because if I had have sat there knowing that I didn't do it just because I listened to some other people, I would have felt horrible about that. So I know some of you might struggle in this sense, and if you're finding it difficult to believe in yourself, find people who believe in you and let them prop you up until you find it in yourself. So I was on my way. And when you have the desire and the passion, and you have some belief, and you have many people telling you you can't do it, well, that's an absolute recipe for hard work ethic. And that's what I did. All I did every single day in one room was poker, eat, poker, eat, poker, sleep. And I did that every single day. And I loved every minute of it. I did that. And I played so much poker that at one point my right index finger got so sore I could not move it or click the mouse button. And I had to try and use other fingers. I learned to play with my left hand. I ordered a proper gaming mouse. That was part of the problem. And I used to ice my hands before going to sleep. My hands got so hot from playing. Now, I only took 3 or 4 days off every 3 or 4 weeks through pure exhaustion. And I grinded, and I grinded, and I grinded. And maybe 5 or 6 months in, I managed to start making 3 to 5K GBP. Now, this was a lot of money for me at the time, and it was going rather well. But then I really got my big break. I'm just going to take a break for water on that note. I really got my big break in the way of something called rakeback. Now, because I was playing so much, someone contacted me And they told me that I could get 70 to 90% rake back. Now, for those of you who don't know what rake back is, whenever you play poker, you pay a fee to the site for playing. And that's how they make their money. Now, rake back, I was paying every single game, and I was playing thousands of games. But now I had zero rake back at this time, and I was going to get 70 to 90%. I mean, this was just huge. And you know when you feel like something is just too good to be true? Well, that's how I felt. I was a fish. I was super skeptical about this. So I took the details, the names of the people and the companies, because I just knew that if there was a chance that this was true, my earnings would go through the roof. And I checked it out. I spoke to the companies, verified that certain people were working in certain places, and I tested it with smaller amounts, and it was true. And I couldn't believe it. And it went from 3 to 5K GBP to 11 to 13K GBP per month at 21 from playing poker, while all my friends were doing jobs they hated with people they didn't like for a third or a quarter of the money. So, what did I do with this money? Because you can tell people this, but unless they see it, they don't really believe it still, because this is just not something people did. And I used to get all sorts of stupid questions, like, but can you, like, actually, is that real? Can you take that money out? I mean, this is how it was seen. This is what people said. Now, I grinded at this level for a few months, and things were going really great. And I thought, well, I think it's time to treat myself, because I hadn't bought anything at this point. I'd just been working my way up. Now, this was my car at the time, and it was left to me by someone very dear. And I was very grateful to have it. But as you can see, I was still not really impressing any ladies. So, when I was younger, I had a tiny dream. And I remember the first time I saw an Audi TT. And I really loved it. And I just thought, when I was that little kid, I thought it'd be so great if I could drive that one day. Now, I think it looks terrible now. But when the new design came out, I thought it looked really great. And it was like I was a child again. It was just something I really wanted to do. So I did my research. I drove this car to Wales because I'd booked a test drive. Now, 2 weeks previously, this car had been broken into, and the door was completely bent. Now, at 21, driving this car with a bent door and trying to drive this car as a test drive for 33K GBP, I think I would have been laughed out the showroom, and I couldn't risk that. So I parked this car around the corner in a supermarket and walked to the showroom. And as soon as I got in the car, it was a surreal moment. It was literally like I was in that cockpit waiting to take off that aircraft carrier. It was that childhood dream, and it had come true, and it had all come true from playing a card game, and I just couldn't get over it. Now, obviously, I didn't show my excitement to the sales rep. I put on my poker face and did negotiating, because I knew I would have to negotiate him down. But the point of the story is this: where and how will you fuel your success? You need to celebrate your successes and keep fueling your fire. And you need to know what your motivators are. Now, I'm not saying it should be something materialistic. This was just a childhood dream I had. Now, imagine the faces of the people when I drove this back and they all saw me. It was a wonderful feeling. But what was even better was when I left my house from the front door and walked to the car every single time without fail. I felt the most joy because I knew I had done it. I knew I had done it and made it work. Now, when I moved to Malta and grinded every single week, on Friday night at midnight, I would jump in the shower and go out and have some drinks with my friends. And that was my reward. So think about what motivates you. What is it that will keep fueling that fire for you? Because when you find it, you're going to want more success. Ego and emotion. This is a big one. Now, I've been broke almost once, And I remember exactly where I was when it happened. I had just come home from uni in the summer, and I was playing poker on the dining room table. My brother was next to me. Now, I was on top of the world. I had just moved up to $20 tournaments, and I turned that $20 that I'd started with into $750. Now, this was big money for me at the time. And that's where things all started going wrong. Hand after game after game, I was dropping off the side of a cliff. Now, I'd seen the punch marks and the knuckle marks in the hard plaster wall next to my brother's computer screen, and I always found it really funny, and I'd never really connected with it until now. Now, luck does not care about you or your ego. And this is what I realized. And it just kept going and going and going. I was sweating profusely, I was red with rage, and I was saying all the things that people say. Why me? I don't deserve this. I'm the best player. It's gonna turn soon. All these things that just don't matter. And I got to my final $80 or $90, which is about 4 or 5 buy-ins. I mean, I was under-rolled anyway, but I didn't know that at the time. But I was lucky. I can see how people would go broke in this scenario. But I managed to just pause, stop myself, and take a deep breath. I moved away from the computer, and I asked myself the following question. What if, or could I go broke here? Could I go broke? And I had to be really honest with myself. And based on the last 1 or 2 hours, I could. Maybe I could go broke here. Well, how would I feel about that? Well, this was worse than death, because I would have had to admit to everyone I'd failed. I'd have to borrow money. And what was my outcome in this scenario? Well, my outcome was just to stay in the game. This is what mattered most. If I could just stay in the game, it would be fine. So, I managed to suck my ego up. I dropped way, way down, and I started again and kept going. Now, I've only ever deposited $20 in poker. Only ever 20, and I've never gone broke. And that was the day I mastered my ego. Now, whilst I mastered my ego, I definitely hadn't mastered my emotion. And in poker, if you don't master your emotion, you're going to be in for one wild ride every single day. Because in poker, online, you make a decision once every 2 seconds. That's 30 a minute. And let's just say one of those goes badly. 1 in 30 goes badly. Well, that's 1 a minute, 60 an hour, and let's say you play for 10 hours. Well, that's 600 times a day things are not going to go your way. Now, how many people do you see banging tables, throwing chips, and cursing over one hand? Now, the reason it's set up like this is because in poker, with the hand that you're playing, you can lose that hand. Whether you have the best hand or not, you can lose that hand. And losing doesn't feel very good. Now, you can have the best hand and get unlucky, and that will magnify that bad feeling. Then you can lose the game. You can lose the buy-in. Now, I was playing 20 to 26 tables in these early days. I was in and out of buy-ins and games every other minute. So this was something that I really had to get to grips with. Now, I've been down 35K in a month, 9K in a day, multiple times, because I've been able to play for 8 hours, 10 hours in a day where I've just been losing. Because I've managed to get control of this and practice. Now, many friends or people that have known me have at some point or other, and particularly all my partners at some point or other, have said to me that I'm a robot. Now, I can see why they would say this, but it's not really that I don't feel. It's just that for every single day, for 12 years, I was hit with emotional roller coasters, and I'm just trained and practiced in taking it in, not having any emotional response, and making a decision. Now, whilst that works brilliantly in poker, sometimes it doesn't come across very well when I'm having a conversation with someone else. So, I want to ask you, when does your ego or your emotion hold you back from your performance? Where are you allowing it to interfere with your outcome? If you think about the outcome, you can generally let some of the other things go. So the first way to do this would just be to know your state. Just knowing your state, because if you don't know your state, how do you expect to react in a useful way? Now, if you're tired, or you're irritable, or you're angry in poker, you're just going to burn money. And I've done all of it. I've burned money. Now, thank you very much. Now, when you know your state, you can begin to start changing it. And the simple example is the glass that you see. Do you see it as half empty or half full? And the fact that you can see it in different ways shows that you can have different perspectives. Now, we all know a celebrity or a superstar that seemingly has everything but commits suicide. And we all know people who have gone through the worst atrocities imaginable, but somehow come out happy and content. And there are so many examples of this. So it's clear that you can work on your state of mind. And really, your state of mind is how you experience any given moment. And that's what life is really all about, your experience in any given moment. Now, when I was asked to give this talk today, I had a very physical reaction. My heart started pounding, and I just felt like I wanted to escape. I wanted to get out of the situation as fast as possible. Now, what was this feeling? I knew it was happening, but what was it? And it was just fear. It was pure fear. I'm an introvert. I was bullied in school. I feel uncomfortable in large groups. I feel uncomfortable in big crowds. Now, what was my outcome? Well, my passion at the moment is to help people. That's what I really love to do. And if I have the opportunity to give a talk that could help one of you, just one person, in something that I've said today, then that's worth overcoming that fear. And that's what I'm doing today, because that fear doesn't serve my passion or my purpose. So now, let's move on to strategy. Now, I realized that in poker, the biggest and most intense roller coaster was when I used to watch the all-ins. Now, watching the all-ins, what would happen was I would be ahead, and then the next card would come out. I'd be an even bigger favorite, and then the final card would come out, where the person had a tiny % chance to win. I'd be collecting all my money, and then boom, they would hit their card, I would lose everything, and I'd be out the game. So I'd be up and down off the end of a cliff. So, what could I do about this? Because obviously feeling like this in every hand 600 times a day is not going to serve me. It's just not going to serve me. So one of the tactics that I used was the following. Focus on what you can control. I hear so many people just focusing on all these things that they can't control. But that's a really poor strategy. It gives you a good excuse, but it's just a really poor strategy. If you only focus on what you can control, you can start to move things. So, in poker, what could I control? Well, I asked myself the following question. And you'll notice that throughout this talk, to get anywhere, I just asked myself some simple questions, and that was always able to move me forward. Now, the question was this: what if I simply didn't watch the screen anymore? What would happen? How would I feel? So I tried it. I stopped watching the all-ins. I would look elsewhere and come back and take any notes whenever the hand was over. And this helped immensely. It just flattened out the ride. Another strategy I took was to see poker as monopoly money, that it wasn't really real until I cashed it out. Another tactic was to ask myself, would I have done anything differently? And I knew I was good enough that I would answer no majority of the time. And if I could answer no, that would alleviate the feeling of bad luck. Because I know all you can do in poker is focus on what you can control. Now, this is where many players fall down. Bankroll management. Many players are very skilled, but they have poor bankroll management, or they just don't adapt. Now, it's simple maths. If you have a buy-in and a win rate, you can just do some simple maths and it will tell you how much you need to play at that buy-in without going broke. Now, there's been many times where I've set limits when I've had to move up or go down. And every time I've had to drop down, it really hurts the ego. But I know what my strategy is, and I've got control of the ego. Now, I think there's a perception about people in poker or in business that you have to take big risks in order to win or to be good. Well, taking big risks is really just gambling if they're not calculated. And it's never just one gamble. It's never just one drink. It's never just one piece of chocolate. How you do one thing is generally how you do everything. And in poker, one small decision translated over thousands of hands, many games, really starts to add up. So I think this is where a lot of players fail, because in poker you have to really manage yourself. And over the years, I've changed sites many times, deals many times, formats, games. You have to be able to change and adapt. If you don't change and adapt, you're going to drop out. The amount of times I've seen poker players coming into a new format and trying to play exactly the same way and then leaving a few months later because it wasn't working. This is why so many players have failed. So I ask you, what is your strategy? If you don't plan and strategize your life, who will? What's your health strategy? What's your relationship strategy? Start strategizing. Now, in the early days, when I was playing poker, my motivators were money and competition through rake races. And that's what really drove me to get the hours in. Now, years down the line, when the deals got bad and the competition went away, I had to find new motivators. I still enjoyed the game, but I wasn't playing as hard. And that's when I opened the staking business, because I knew that if I was going to have these players playing with my money, that I would have to be their role model. I would have to show them the way. And that's what motivated me. I played harder than any of them. So just get some simple strategies. How many of you just leave your phone face up with all notifications pinging? Now, we're all human beings. This is what we desire. This is what it's designed to do. You will look at that and want to read what's in there. So what strategy should we take? Well, how about if we just remove the visual cues? Just turn off your notifications, put your phone in a drawer in another room, and just see how often you want to go or actually go and pick it up. Now, the next one, self-discipline. Now, if you want to get anywhere, I would say that this is probably one of the most important. Now, what is self-discipline? I believe that self-discipline is the ability to do things that you have to do, need to do, or planned to do when you don't feel like it. I hear so many people saying that they're going to do these things or start these things when they feel like it. But everybody can do anything difficult. when they feel like it. That's not what makes it difficult. What makes it difficult is if you can do these things when you don't feel like it. Now, if I only ever got up to my alarm in the early hours of the morning and went and lifted heavy weights in the gym when I felt like it would never happen. It literally would not happen once. Never has that alarm gone off and I've wanted to get up. Never have I been in that gym and lifting those final heavy sets and thought, I want to do this. Not once. So you have to understand that there's many things you'll never feel like doing. So you have to start getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Now, if I only played poker when I felt good or whenever things were going great, there's many times I wouldn't play. And getting the reps in and getting the hands in, if you can get more hours in, I can sit there for hours and hours and hours losing, days and days, and it's happened weeks on end where every single day I've lost. But because I can do that, the more hands you get in, the more money you make. And it's the same in anything else. The more reps you get in, the better you will be. So, what would your life look like if you literally had the discipline to do everything that you don't feel like doing, when you don't feel like doing it? Where would you be? Who would you be? Would you just have everything that you ever wanted? Is it that simple? This is the power of self-discipline. The next thing is keep learning. Now, I've had to learn this the hard way, because in poker, and especially when you're young, when you're winning, you feel like you're the best player. You just feel like you're better than everybody else. And because you feel that way, it doesn't feel like you need to do anything, because you're just going to continue to keep crushing everybody. But there's been many times where this has happened, where I've been ahead and the competition's been here, and slowly but surely, because the skill levels just improve so much in poker, that it begins to meet me. And those are the moments where you have to look and sit and say, what shall I do now? There has been moments where I'm not winning anymore. I'm just not winning, and I have to figure out what I can do about it. And I realized that you just have to suck it up and put the hours in and learn. If you think about any professional, any hero, any athlete, any star, they don't just turn up to the game. They don't just turn up to the competition and perform. They're out there all the hours where you don't see them, and they're learning, they're growing, they're getting better, so they can stay ahead of the competition. All you see is that competition and that end point. So, how are you staying ahead of the competition or of yourself? Now, the next thing is that I really believe that you're not too old to learn. You're never too old to learn. And you're never too young to teach. Everybody knows something. Nobody knows nothing. A baby can teach a parent patience, unconditional love. So think about this for a minute and think about where you could keep learning and staying ahead. Are you only turning up in your competition? Are you only spending your hours at work? Or are you thinking about how you can stay ahead and reach that next level? And these were the times when I felt happiest, because playing was much more enjoyable, or doing anything is much more enjoyable when you're putting in and implementing the things that you've learned. So, I'm just going to recap. So, we have the desire and the passion, we have the belief, we have the ego and emotion, strategy, self-discipline, and to keep learning. Now you'll notice all throughout this talk that the only way that I was able to move anywhere was through the use of questions. Now, I haven't had coaches or mentors, it's just been me, myself, and I. And I realized that if I could just keep asking myself important questions, that's how I managed to move forward. So think about what questions you have to ask yourself. And I hope some of the ones that I've asked you today would help you gain some perspective and help you move forward. But if you need to ask yourself any more, just start doing that and start coaching yourself. Because it's not really about overcoming any odds. It's about moving forward, trying to improve, and overcoming yourself. Now, I would like to conclude by taking some time to thank the organizers for allowing me to speak to you today. I hope that you have got something out of this, and I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a very difficult situation right now, and I understand that some of you are finding this challenging, but please try and think about what you can take out of this scenario. What can you do to come out of this stronger? What can you do to help others in this situation? Now, if you would like to connect with me, my email is chris@chriskiefert.com. I have a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page, I have a website. And since you're all listening, I would like to offer you a free remote work PDF, which is some free tips and tricks that I have learned over the years working from home that you can get for free if you email me, free remote work PDF at chris@chriskiefert.com. Now, if you liked what you heard and you think that you might want to take some things further, then feel free to contact me. And if you take any of my services, you'll get 25% off for the next 6 months. And that doesn't include the remote manager crash course, because that's already heavily discounted to help people in this scenario. Now, I'm just going to see if we have enough time for any questions, because I haven't checked the watch. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so we have a question. What's your best suggestion to gain more self-discipline? Well, as I discussed, self-discipline is something that's very difficult because it's obviously doing it when you don't feel like it. My suggestion would be to never start too big. This is why most people fail in New Year's resolutions, because they set a goal of losing all this weight. Now, you want to keep it small. So if you're trying to, let's say you're trying to lose weight, don't focus on that part, because you already don't have the habit of being a person that's healthy or fit. You need to become that person first before you focus on the goal. So I would say to start very small with something that you know you can do, because if you make it too big, you'll be motivated to do it for a day, a week, or 2 weeks. But then you're not going to be motivated anymore. And as soon as you fail, you're going to feel bad about yourself. So very small steps. Something you can do that you know you can do. So, for instance, I had a rule in the house, cleaning up. And it was, I realized that I wasn't doing all these simple things. So I had a rule which was, if it takes less than 2 minutes, do it right away. Now, I know I can do that. I know I can do that if it takes less than 2 minutes. So my advice would be, for self-discipline, start small and keep building those wins. You want to just make sure you're able to do it each time. So if it's exercise, go for a walk to your favorite song for 3 minutes and come back and do that every single day without fail. You know you can do that, and it will start building that habit, and it will start building that discipline, and you're going to feel good about it because you know you can do that. So just don't set it too hard, and then build up. Then you can start building on habits. Too many people focus on the very difficult part, and they just want to get there quickly. And that's not really how it works. You have to become the person. Let's see if we have anything else. Okay, so what was your main grind? Cash game or tournaments? Also, does rakeback still exist? I would assume it's cash game, but do you know any players whose main grind is tournaments? So the last games I played were spin and goes, actually. That was the last game I played. But I mean, I've played everything. Tournaments, sit and goes, MTTs, cash. So when I said I've had to adapt and change, I mean, I really have played all of these different things. And yes, rakeback still does exist on some sites. And you can find that, but it's nowhere near what it used to be. I mean, there used to be in crazy deals. I remember one month where there was actually 150% rakeback. Me and some other top guys, we moved to this site, and we all moved over for 1 month to play this insane promotion. I mean, someone raked 100K in that month. I mean, I raked 35K, and I mean, it was just crazy. So it does still exist, and I would assume it's cash in more players. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of people playing tournaments, especially MTTs. I think, you know, that's going to be one of the last things to go in poker's multi-table tournaments. So hopefully I've answered your question there. How was my split between active playing and studying the game? Yeah, so in the later years, when I actually got my act together and realized that you had to keep learning, every day I would start with some sort of learning. I would be looking at programs, computer solvers. So some of you might know or not know this, but in poker today, there's actual computer programs which solve poker mathematically. And I would look at this every morning and see how a computer would play poker and start adjusting to that. So in terms of ratios, I mean, it was maybe getting 20% of my time would be studying, but it definitely increased in the later years as the game got so much tougher. It just has to be a part of your game now if you're not growing. But I think that's true for everything. Question. Are there any books I would recommend that have been influential for you? Interesting, because I was not really much of a reader until recently, because I had a negative association with reading through being in school, where I felt I was forced to read. So I saw it as something that was forced, and I really had a negative association with it. But I've realized, and I've heard from so many people, that reading is incredibly important. So I've had to develop that habit. Now, in terms of what books to read, I mainly read anything to do with personal development. So, I mean, for those of you who really want to shake up, you can read David Goggins, if any of you know about him. He really is one that will hit some nerves, and he's got a good story. So David Goggins is a very interesting read. Anything Tony Robbins related, some of you might like or not like him, but there's some very good, but he has a lot of good strategies. He has a lot of good strategies that I've listened to. I recommend, for me, what works more is YouTube, any kind of podcasts and these types of things. They work very well for me when I'm cooking or making breakfast. That's really good to get some information in the morning. I really like listening to those. I can recommend Impact Theory, Ed Milet, Tony Robbins, anything. Les Brown, he's always really fun to listen to. So those would be the ones I would suggest. Let's see. Just seeing if we have any more questions coming in. Okay, so we have an interesting one. talking about building habits and routines. But during these times, if you have other factors that affect your daily routine, such as kids, how do you suggest to deal with that mentally? Well, that's an interesting question. Firstly, I don't have kids, so I'm certainly not going to claim to be any sort of expert on this matter. And again, I would advise you to ask yourself some questions. Who do you know that has children that you could all speak to as parents and come together and talk about the challenges that you're facing and what works and doesn't work? That's how, if I had kids and I was finding that situation, that's what I would try and do. I'd try and problem solve it by understanding what's working for others, what's working for me, and we can share our experiences and deal with that together. So that would be my advice. I can't really tell you anything more because I don't have children in that situation. But thank you very much for that question. I hope that that helps in some way. Just seeing if we have anything else. Okay, I think we're good. I want to thank you all for listening. I hope this has been useful and enjoy the rest of the summit. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.